What is going on, guys? It's Carl. We are back with another video, and Newcastle United lost to Chelsea 3-2 in what can only be described as a pretty dismal display. Who does that lie with? Is it Eddie Howe? Is it the players? Is it the backroom staff? Are the players already on the beach? Let's go into it. So, here we are again. After a relatively decent performance against Wolverhampton Wanderers, we put in that shambolic display against a piss poor Chelsea side. Now I'm going to try and leave the expletives out as much as possible. I don't want to go on a ridiculous rant or anything like that, and I'm certainly not Eddie Howe out. That said, surely it's time that questions are asked. Is it fair to say that although I felt we did put in a good performance against Wolves, there were lots of people that felt, well, actually we didn't play that well and Wolves just didn't really turn up to the occasion and were missing some pretty important players, which again, that perspective would be fair enough. But I spoke about this Wolverhampton Wanderers game, this Chelsea game being huge factors within the rest of our season, and the reason for that was probably a little bit of a negative outlook in the fact that Newcastle United are very close to finishing outside of the top 10. And people will also say, but Carl, we're only 3 points off 7th place, and I get that, but I find it difficult to take that stance when we find it difficult to beat the teams around us, especially Chelsea. Now, I know lots of people will be thinking, oh, but it's Chelsea. If you are thinking that, surely you have to be honest with yourself. This Chelsea side is not the Chelsea side of yesteryear. It's nowhere near that. I almost feel like that Chelsea side is irreparable. The amount of money that they spent, the lack of atmosphere at Stamford Bridge. I'm so glad I didn't go. The whole thing just looks appalling. And twice at Stamford Bridge, we've allowed a really poor team to get the better of us. Obviously, that horrible mistake from Kieran Trippier cost us a Carabao Cup final, and arguably the best chance we would have had to win the Carabao Cup in years. Obviously, we had that chance against Manchester United last season, but Liverpool were so depleted, and Chelsea didn't put up any performance. If Newcastle United were there, you would have thought we'd have won that. So it's a difficult pill to swallow. And going into this game, you at least think we owe them one. We've got to try and cement a push for Europa League, or at the very least Europa Conference. And honestly, neither of them look viable to me. I know mathematically they are, but the performances that we're putting in, and not just the performances that we're putting in, but the responses to the performances that we're putting in, and the insight into the performances that we're getting back from the staff and Eddie Howe regarding the performances that we're putting in, is really concerning for me. Really concerning. Let's look at Sven Botman. Didn't have his greatest, arguably had one of his worst games in a Newcastle United shirt. Hasn't been the Sven Botman that we know since he's come back from injury. A pretty nasty injury, so I'm not entirely concerned about him in the long run. But yes, he's played his part in a pretty terrible defensive display over the last few months. Just to put that into context, Jamie Carragher mentioned that we're currently on track to match Eddie Howe's last 6 teams who've conceded 60 goals in a season. I'm sorry, but that is mental, considering we struggled to get as many goals as we wanted to last season, and the one thing that kept us where we were was our defensive display. So what's changed? What's changed there? I'm so confused. Is this where the cracks are starting to show, in that actually tactically we're not as astute as what we like to have thought based on last year's performances in comparison to this year's? Fabian Schär, he's been fantastic the majority of the season for me, but again, he's not faultless at all. I know obviously we've got the injury with Kieran Trippier, and there's a debacle surrounding Lewis Hall and Dan Burn and Tino Livramento, but hit the performance that he put in last night. He's one of very few that can hold his head up high. Tino Livramento's performance defensively and progressively was outstanding. And why he's not getting the games that we feel he should be is absolutely beyond me. And I think beating around the bush, and I apologise for that, but why is it taking these bad performances for Eddie Howe to realise that the players that he continues to use week in, week out aren't good enough? Dan Burn can be replaced, and I'm not making him a scapegoat, but he can be replaced. At this point, with regards to Sven Botman, I would rather Jamal Lascelles come in and we drop Sven Botman for a little bit. These tough decisions I feel need to be made, and they're just not being made. And I think that's where my questions are starting to come for Eddie Howe. Like I said, I don't want Eddie Howe gone at all, but it's difficult not to question his decision-making processes currently. And the one thing that stood out for me was his post-match interview, and his first line was that there were lots of positives to take from that.
Difficult to know where to start, really. Lots of good. Let's start with the positive. Lots of good. I thought we started the game really well. I thought we were fluent in possession.
Where, Eddie? Where? If you're talking about the first 5 minutes, fine. But other than that, it's a really lazy, media-trained way to look at things. Like, I absolutely don't expect him to come out and blast the players. The one positive that come from that, from me, honest, or two, Tino Livramento's performance and Jacob Murphy's crossing ability proved yet again. We can talk about Isak's goal, it was fantastic. He didn't do enough. There was plenty of opportunities for him to get on the end of Jacob Murphy's balls.
That's what she said. Michael, please.
Completely wasted, and I felt sorry for him. I really did. Sean Longstaff obviously had a torrid time. Again, don't want to make him a scapegoat. There's been lots of bad performances, and it just feels like a lot of that is because we've lost the intensity. We've lost the identity. We just lost everything that we had last year that got us to a position where we were. And it doesn't seem that any of that is going to come back. But where does that issue lie? Are we proving that Steve Bruce obviously had a lot of these players and that they weren't good enough? I think we knew that anyway. But Steve Bruce didn't have Sven Botman, Bruno, Joe Linton, Tonali, Isak, Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon as a collective. I know he had some of those players, but as a collective didn't have those players together. And he still managed to finish in 11th place. And it almost, and I know it's a little bit early, but if we finish there, where do we take, what do we take from this season? This is all about asking questions and trying to understand other people's outlooks, because I just feel like everyone's kind of letting Eddie Howe get away with it a little bit. Like, even the journalists aren't asking him. A really simple question for me is, why is it such night and day between home and away performances? Are we really that... is the crowd's atmosphere really that imperative to get a performance out of the players, that they're that subpar? Is that where we're at? And that when we don't have that because there's not enough fans or not enough noise to G up the atmosphere, that the players aren't interested, or there's nothing to compensate for the lack of ability that they have. I just don't understand. I know we can talk about injuries, I get that, but we've got a lot of players back now, and we're not missing loads of first team regulars. Joe Linton, Callum Wilson, and Sandro Tonali. Realistically, Harvey Barnes wasn't starting week in, week out. I know it would be lovely to get a real good run of form into his legs and see what he's capable of, because that transfer is obviously not looking like great business at the moment, but that's no fault of his own at all. And we've gone from what should have been the most exciting season in Newcastle United's history for me, almost, with that Champions League run that we had and the performance against PSG, to one of the most disillusioned, depressive, meandering seasons that I've ever witnessed. The second half of this season or as soon as we would come out of the Champions League, has just been dismal. And I get the feeling that the players feel that way as well. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Lots of people all over Twitter, not just Twitter, because I know Twitter can be looked at as the cesspit, and it's not. And we're all pretty unhinged on Twitter. Me, I'll admit to that. But lots of people are starting to become a bit disillusioned with the club, I feel. And, you know, I have my banter on Twitter talking about happy clappers and stuff like that. But talking in a more articulate manner, I feel like Newcastle United fans need to get a grip. There's a huge part of Newcastle United fans need to get a grip. One side wants to talk about the fact that we feel like they feel like a lot of fans are entitled. I disagree. I just think people have got a taste for what's available, and that we know that the Saudis are building a project, but this doesn't seem like it's aligning with the project, so it's difficult not to feel flat. But this dancing and clapping, not clapping, but this dancing and cheering, having a party after we've just lost 3-2, it's embarrassing. It is fucking embarrassing. It's a loser's mentality. And if that's what you want to continue to have, and if that's what makes you sleep at night, and you can continue to call Newcastle United fans the best fans in the world because we support our team through thick and thin, sorry, that just breeds complacency. It breeds complacency. And if you genuinely don't think it does, you haven't got a club. I'm sorry, and that may seem a bit arrogant, but it's true. In any walk of life, accepting mediocrity breeds more mediocrity. Wanting more out of players and demanding more out of players is what helps people strive for excellency. So this bullshit that we have the best fans in the world, and you know, it's okay, we've lost, we'll support you evermore. Fuck off with that nonsense. Fuck off with that nonsense from now on, because I feel that has a huge part to play. I really do. If Newcastle United want to progress as an elite club and get to a point where, you know, Manchester City and Liverpool and Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal's success, we need to get rid of this losers mentality. Anyway, I've gone on for long enough. If you managed to get this far, I do applaud you. Please like, share, subscribe, and just let me know in the comments. Look, it is a debate at the end of the day. That's what this channel is about. Where do you feel the issues are coming from? Do you think another manager would have been able to get more out of the players? No, I don't. I'm just frustrated with what we did tactically. I felt we could have played a low block rather than playing such a high line, because Dubravka and Sven Botman didn't communicate very well. But I digress. Let me know how you feel about this. Where do you think Newcastle United are going to finish? I genuinely don't know. It is touch and go either way, isn't it? So, yeah. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.